Welcome to Performance Upgrades. I'm your host, Dave Moss. The show is brought to you by SportBikeWrench.com. Performance parts and professional advice. Remember, when you buy from Sport Bike Wrench, you support our programming here at On The Throttle. We have our stuff back from Gerry Piazza at GP Frame and Wheel. We need to go ahead and unpackage our triple clamps and our forks, which have been straightened, so that we can go ahead and begin the reassembly process on our project 2009 R6. Bubble wrap is really expensive, so I'm cheap. So I carefully cut away all the Scotch tape so I can save the bubble wrap and use it next time, so bear with me. Now, oftentimes when things come back, you may have to put them back together, you may have to put seals in them, oil in them, put the internals back in. There may be very different requirements from professionals that straighten things out. So real important when you get them back that you know what shape you're getting them back in. In this instance, they're rebuilt with the oil back in to the correct level, so we can just go ahead and bolt these back on. So let's start reassembling our R6. Now to start with, we need to separate our triple clamps out. So that's going to mean removing the top nut and the washer and the plate. Then it's going to mean removing the two lock washers underneath here and having everything separated out. Now we had taken our bearing off, so we'll go ahead and reinstall it. The bearing is in place, our top bearing is already captive. There's plenty of grease on the bearing and there's plenty in the steering head itself. So we're going to go ahead and just put that back in, run it all the way back up, and make sure it's seated correctly, which it is. Keep the pressure on the lower triple. Go ahead and install the first of the lock nuts. It's a fine thread, so you'll need to take your time. And then when you can feel it get tight, go ahead and tighten it as tight as you can by hand. Now, that sets the tension, and you should be able to move the lower very easily. The problem with its movement right now, and Chris will focus in on this, is if I touch it, it stops. It doesn't move at all, it just stops exactly where it's put. So that is too tight, so let's back it off a little bit. If I can undo it, there we go. So we'll take it all the way off, we'll put the tension where it hits there firm. Let's see that. Now that moves a lot looser and it swings a lot further. Let's detension it just a little more. Right there. There we go. So now just the slightest touch and it moves around, no problem at all. This is by far the most important step. It's really critical that you get this right, because there's nothing worse than having to come back to it, tear everything off and do it again. So really take your time here, setting the tension on the head bearings correctly. We can go ahead and take our second lock nut, carefully thread that down, and because there's a rubber washer there, you don't have to make this second nut really tight. It needs to contact the rubber washer and then just line it up so that the washer with legs can fit perfectly in between. And that's this piece of the puzzle done. Now we need our upper triple. We're ready to install this. First thing you need to do is put your clutch cable back where it belongs and then go ahead and locate the upper triple into position. Put the washer back on, put the nut back on, and set it just hand tight. Now you'll need it just a little bit loose because you have to put the forks in. But before you can do that, you need to make sure the handlebars are available.